This is a tutorial on the Yamaha Portasound PSS 570 and its identical cousin, the PSS 470. Today I'm going to be talking about the digital synthesizer, this very appealing set of switches up here that purports to give you infinite flexibility in FM sounds. In order to use this functionality, we push the on-off button here, and that completely disables all of these built-in instrument settings. Now the way I've set it up, we can just have a single note here repeating, and we can see what changing these settings does. So this is the so-called wave setting. I believe it's just choosing different waveforms. Spectrum is basically a filter that controls how much high frequencies there are. So if we go down, you can get a nice low frequency sound. Or if you go all the way to the top to the 5 setting, you get a high frequency sound. Now you'll notice that there are very big steps. Unfortunately, this is a digital switch, and you don't get fine-grained control. You get options 1 through 5, and if you were hoping that maybe you could modify this keyboard to give you more control, well, that's not really possible. These are digital inputs into the chip inside of the keyboard, so this is as much control as you're ever going to get. So that's the wave and the spectrum. Modulation I can't really explain nicely, but we can play around with it. You can get a sense of what it does. Sort of seems like it emphasizes the lower frequencies, although honestly I don't think that's a perfect explanation of what it does. I do have a much better understanding of what the next two do. So attack and decay control how quickly the sounds come into their full frequency range and how quickly they go away. So if we put attack down to the lowest setting here, you can see how it takes a really long time to develop. Now here you can see that actually 5 levels of variation is really enough. There's not really much difference between 3 and 5 here. Decay is sort of the same idea in the reverse direction, so now if you have attack and decay at their maximum settings, you get kind of percussive sound. Of course, I find that this keyboard is best at producing droning sounds and pad sounds, so I like to have decay really long. And notice it's not really a question of when you let go of the key, it's just sort of how slowly the sound decays into its simplest form. So you get the most interesting sort of longish sounds if you have attack and decay both at their lowest setting. Sadly, this final setting here, volume, is completely pointless. That's right, it's a volume control. So you really only get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 settings to mess with. Some of the settings interact oddly. For instance, low attack and high decay. You can barely even hear it. Let's up the volume. Kind of cool. It's almost like a double hit. So that's kind of fun. Of course, if I switch away from here, we're going to get our ears blasted by how much I had to turn up volume in order to be able to hear that. Okay, so these controls actually do have some influence on the sounds you get from the built-in settings. There's sort of a trick to it. So if I turn off this button here and start playing, that's just your built-in cosmic setting. If I then change any one of these values, you can see it starts to have an effect. But if I ever push the cosmic button again, then it goes back to its original value. So basically what's happening is as soon as you change any of these sliders, it replaces whatever setting goes with the cosmic presets with the slider value here. Now this is not actually completely useless because the FM chip has a lot more than 5 levels of each one of these parameters that it can take on. I would guess it's probably 7 bits or 8 bits, so maybe 256 levels or something like that. And by choosing values from here, you get to set those parameters to values that are not accessible using these sliders here. So you can get some stuff by experimenting here and then playing around here. That's kind of cool. And I don't think I could have gotten that sound from setting up here. So now you will find sometimes that one of these parameter values exactly matches what's in here. So I don't have a good example here, but you might find that, let's say, Funky Synth here is producing a wave that's setting number 3. And so if you were to slide this into setting number 3, it would just sound the same as if you just accepted the defaults here. So the other thing that's sort of interesting here is I've chosen to leave sustain on. This keyboard doesn't have any kind of reverb, and it would be greatly improved by having it. I find that leaving sustain on sort of gives you a very poor man's reverb-ish sound. You can see there's still a tiny bit of decay, but not much. And then there's vibrato, which doesn't really do a whole lot. I mean, you don't really want an extreme vibrato effect anyway, so I think that's okay. And then I don't think this duet button really does anything useful at all. So there you go. I hope that that wasn't too long-winded, but I wanted to give you a full sense of what this keyboard could do in terms of the different sorts of sounds it can produce. And the only way to do that is just to produce the actual sounds. I think it's actually a pretty interesting keyboard. I enjoy listening to it. Ooh, that's pretty cool. Oh, yeah. Sorry for my inability to pick out a tune in real time. In any case, I hope you've enjoyed this quick overview of the Yamaha Portasound PSS 570.